Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome back to the Pipeline Podcast. I'm your host, Daren Mcclimans. Welcome back to the show, episode 93. I am joined by some very, very special guests today. Joining me from the Outatime Film Podcast, I have Tom and I have John. Fellas, how's it going today? How are you guys doing?
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. No, I'll say this up front. Last time, because usually when I reach out to people to work with them, I always make sure, I want to listen to their content. I want to make sure who I'm working with first. And last time when we kind of reached out, I started listening to podcasts. And I was like, this is a great podcast. I love this show. And I've been listening to the show ever since. So it's cool to have you here, work with someone that I legitimately think makes great content. And again, welcome to the show.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Really appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Of course, today we are talking about Spider-Man. I think a franchise no one really likes. I don't know if anyone actually enjoys Spider-Man. No, I was kidding.
Obviously, one of a single person.
No one. Obviously, one of the biggest phenomenons of all time recently. And I don't know if it happened over there for you guys, but at least over here they released all the Spider-Man movies back in theaters for certain people. Was it a thing for you guys, or was it also just not a thing?
It hasn't been a thing yet, but it's coming in August, maybe July.
Pretty soon.
But it is soon. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. It was a weird thing because they made it this huge thing where it's back in cinemas again. It's amazing, but it's select theaters for one showing for one day, and it was well, it's nearly impossible for you to find a theater that's actually doing this big event. And it was crazy because it made a bunch of money back in theaters, but it would have made so much more money if you would have I don't know, did it in more select theaters or whatever.
It's very odd when there's a big, huge movie franchise that would just go into select theaters. It made so much money at the box office, and it's well beloved. You look at the Tobey Maguire trilogy, and then Andrew Garfield's movies, and then Tom Holland. And then they're just brilliant. I really like them, and you get to see the memes as well. You just I love it. It's a fantastic franchise, and you can really see that on the internet, how people just quote the movie day by day and be you will just not run out of Spider-Man content for such a long time. I mean, the graphic novels are just really good as well.
Yeah, I can't believe they released the films on a Monday. That was the thing that
on a Monday
made no sense. What are we doing here? You want to get audiences back? Who's doing this on a Monday? I don't know.
That is crazy. Yeah, and I feel again, Spider-Man rankings I think are always kind of interesting because everybody's ranking is going to be a little bit different. It's a franchise where well, this is my Spider-Man, and then for other people this is my Spider-Man, and for other people every person's going to have their own kind of ranking. And I will just say before we end up actually getting into the ranking itself, all of our rankings are probably going to be different, and all of these rankings are also going to be valid. I know it's a franchise that people get very passionate about. If that's in a positive way or a negative way, it's still just passion either way. So it's just going to be our opinions and kind of how we're feeling about it. I do want to welcome in the chat. We got Stranger in the house. How's it going, Stranger? And we got Noah Owen in the house. Thank you guys so much for being here. So I often like to start our shows by just asking my guests things that they've been enjoying lately. If that is a new TV show, a movie they just watched, video games, or books or graphic novels. Is there any piece of art that you've consumed recently that you would like to talk about or share for just a little bit?
Well, I was just saying to you before we started the recording, I've been watching The Acolyte, and I've been watching every episode 3 times. And today was my second viewing of episodes 4 and 5. And I just think it's brilliant, especially when it comes to Star Wars, something that's so close to my heart. Every time I, watch a new thing, I'm always okay, I need to remove myself from expectations as much as possible. So I'll watch it a second time, I'll watch it a third time. And you get to those second 2 viewings and it's they're doing something special. I think this show... especially, I mean, it's heartbreaking, don't get me wrong, but it's really, really exciting and really energetic, and I'm so thrilled that we have that.
It's such an interesting thing with that show, I feel because it's the first of its kind in Star Wars. It feels like it feels so separate than anything that they've done thus far. So it's really cool to see like a completely new timeline, way separated from anything they've done thus far, doing like new and interesting things with the fandom. And obviously, like, there's a lot of people who have either loved the show or hated the show. But I feel like I feel like you should, like, you know, accommodate them at least for trying something different, even if you don't love it or if you do love it, kind of thing.
Oh, for sure. I feel like that's something that a lot of Star Wars fans, kind of misunderstand. But I think I like to think that the majority of us are wonderful and the best that fandoms have to offer. I mean, I went to Star Wars Celebration last year, and I'm going to it in Tokyo next year. And seeing the people in real life, they're right there in front of me, and they're all so positive and beautiful, and they all only have good things to say.
Yeah, that's amazing. Again, I'm not like the hugest Star Wars guy ever, but I did like the Phantom Menace when it came out last month, a couple months ago. And like, as someone that's not even like huge in the fandom, like seeing all these hordes of people come in and celebrate a movie that they love, going outside of the theater and seeing kids play with like the lightsabers, and it's just like, when it's a positive place, what a cool community it can be. Like what a cool place.
Yeah, imagine if they just released that on a Monday. Just imagine how much less popular it would have been.
Imagine you see like all like people who just got, finished their work at the end of the day and like, it's Star Wars. I could see something in the evening, but oh my god, a Monday.
Yeah, that's mad. We like around here we have like these like Tuesday showings that's like half off on a Tuesday or whatever. So sometimes I go on Tuesday, but Monday's kind of a weird day to go to like the cinema, I feel.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
John, do you have anything that like you would like to share that you're also enjoying?
I am enjoying Elden Ring, the DLC. So I'm a huge fan of the Soulsborne games. I love Bloodborne. I love Dark Souls, and there's Lies of P. But I love Elden Ring in terms of like the lore, the huge world building that Miyazaki has built, and it is just incredible. And I love the bosses in the Soulsborne games. They're just so unique, horrifying, and they will just like destroy you every time whenever you try to defeat them. And it's just so soul destroying when you're just like that close to defeat a boss, but it's so satisfying when you like defeat one and like you spend an entire week trying to do it. Sure. And the DLC is just mad. Like I thought it was just going to be like one level, but no, it's just like a sequel. It just feels like a sequel to the game.
Sure.
And wow, it is amazing. I love it.
That is amazing. That's a game that I hear everyone being like it's the greatest thing ever, and it's just them stressing out trying to beat the next boss, or just raging, being like, "This is great. I love this."
It's like a love and hate situation. It's like, oh my god, I hate this game, but I love it so much. This is incredible. This is so peak.
I really felt your fist slam the desk then. I feel like you've been keeping that in for a long time.
I did the dramatic structure right here. It's like trying to paint the picture of like what's it like to be a Soulsborne player for this whole.
It's amazing.
Oh my god, yeah, it's amazing. I recommend it.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. As far as me, like, I feel like I'm someone that's really bad about like I have all these things I need to watch, so I end up watching none of it because there's too much to choose from. Like I'm in that kind of cycle recently.
Oh man.
Oh yeah.
I finished The Walking Dead a couple weeks ago for like the first time. Like I went through that, and I've been kind of diving into some of like the spin-off stuff, and it's like, where do you start? Because there's like so much that they've put out up until this point. Like it's one of those franchises where they've done so much and trying to get caught up. So I watched the first kind of spin-off in there since the show had ended, the one with are you guys fans of like the franchise like at all, or are you guys?
No, not really, to be honest.
I watched a bit of it. I've stopped in halfway season 2. I don't know why I haven't continued it, to be honest. So
gotcha.
It's people said it's really good, so
it's one of those shows. It's like the hills and valleys where it's like, oh, this is like the best TV, and it's like, oh no, this is the worst TV. Like it goes through that kind of that cycle of journey. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting one, and then just been kind of trying to finish off some stuff. I'm going on vacation tomorrow, so I've been kind of like cycling out some of the things. Like, let's get done with some of the stuff before I leave for like a week.
Yeah,
but no,
no,
it's good. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I've we've been following each other on Twitter for quite a while, and
Yeah.
I love seeing your like timetables like in the week, being like, okay, this is what I'm watching on this night and this night, because that's my brain. That is exactly how I function. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be watching, like, currently I'm doing a rewatch of all the X-Men films before Deadpool and Wolverine. And I've done the animated series. I'm gonna do Legion. These are things I've never seen before, and it's like, okay, cool. I've got a month basically as of today.
Yeah.
And I just did Deadpool the other day, the first one, and so I'm like, I've got like a timetable. I'm writing down every episode. And when you watch something like The Walking Dead, you've got to do the same thing. You're like, there's so much to do. I've got to all write it down.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No. I Go ahead. Sorry.
sorry. I don't do timetables. I'm not that guy who plans all to do something. Like, I have a terrible organization like skills when it comes to like timetables or watching things. It just comes to me like whenever it just comes to my mind. Like one day I'll be reading. This is something actually what happened to me. Like I'll be reading 100 chapters of One Piece. Like I don't care. I just like doing that, and then the next day, I'll be like, read that for another month. I'll be watching, I don't know, The True Detective or something. So yeah, it's all over the place for me.
I feel that. I'm someone like I'm really bad at finishing stuff. Like I'm like, oh, this thing looks really cool. I'm gonna start it right now, and it's like somehow I have like 50 shows that I haven't finished. It's like, well, shit, I gotta somehow prioritize some of these things over the other.
Yeah, well, I know you're a big fan of Arrow, and
oh my god,
like when I like just ever since I got involved, my first thing was like, I'm gonna make a timeline. I'm gonna watch every episode, and I'm gonna like figure out based on like the cliffhangers and all of the context clues. And my friend came to me and was like, oh yeah, so I started watching The Flash, and I was like, oh, that's great. And then she was like, does Arrow take place before? And I was like, well, okay. And I was like, okay, listen, if you want to, and she sounded really interested, and she was like, oh yeah, okay, I might watch them all. And I was like, okay, but I have to warn you right now.
It's a lot.
Because I've had a lot of friends who have started, and I've given them the timeline, and they've got like 3 years into it, like and she's currently just before Crisis on Earth X, and I'm so proud of her.
That's amazing. Oh man, I can't imagine starting it for the first time now, where it's like, okay, you got to do one episode of Arrow, then Flash, then Super. Like you got to go. It's so hard.
It's
like
mad.
I think. Like when the Flash was kind of ending, I was doing all these like calculations of how many episodes. I think there's around like 900 episodes in total or something crazy like that. Like for all the shows, and then you get into some people where it's like, but what about Titans? They appeared in that one thing. It's like, what do you include at this point?
That's the worry. Like we've got one more season of Superman and Lois, and I'm really worried that they're gonna tie it into the Arrowverse in an unavoidable way. I'm gonna have to go back and redo my timeline to get it all in.
You're just gonna be like analyzing everything and be like, oh my god, we need to connect this in some other way. Like a madman just trying to connect it all. Oh my god. Yeah,
for sure.
That's amazing. Oh, I could get way sidetracked if we start talking about the Arrowverse and all that kind of fun stuff. But no, I say we start jumping into some of these movies. What's your guys' kind of like general history when it comes to Spider-Man as a character? Was these movies you grew up on? Did you watch any of the animated shows growing up? What's your guys' kind of like history with the character?
Go on, John. You go first. No, you go.
Okay. Well, the first time I've got into Spider-Man was, I don't know which animated show this was. Like I remember, like this episode where Spider-Man visited this like really sick like child or something in this hospital, and then it's just like this really sad story about she's not well, and Peter Parker, Spider-Man really comforts her about, he tells her about the stories, the adventures that he's been through, and I was like, this is really sad, and I thought that made a huge impact on me, as Spider-Man, and like how relatable of a character he is. He grew up on a lot of family, but also with the conflict he's been going through, and it is really emotional. I really like that. That's the impact I got from Spider-Man, from that time. So yeah, that was the first time I got into that, and then I read the graphic novels, and then Spider-Man 2. Actually, the first Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire, that was like, yeah, this is the character I see now, like this really cool, character. And it was, I remember watching it on the VHS. It was just that vivid memory of just like seeing Spider-Man swing on the screen. It was so magical. I loved it. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing, man.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I think that potentially the first superhero love of my life was Superman, and I'd always watched the 1978 film, but then after that it was Batman and Spider-Man, and when I was a kid, just watching the Maguire trilogy again and again. I had the third film. We had like a special edition DVD with like the sleeve, and it was it was just so beautiful. And I still have such fond memories of those films. And I remember where I was when I went to go and when my dad turned. I was in a shoe shop. And he was like, "Hey, do you want to go see The Amazing Spider-Man?" And I was like, "Yes, that's all I want right now." And that was, and then from there, my birthday party in 2014 was going to see Amazing Spider-Man 2, and I didn't really rewatch them a lot, kind of as we got into the Holland trilogy. And I remember going to see Homecoming with my dad, and he was like, "Yeah, it was all right, but it's no Maguire." And I was like, "Oh, shut up! What do you know?" And then we went home, and he was like, "Okay, sit down. We're gonna put the first Maguire film on." And I basically rediscovered it. And from there, I remember my first thing that wasn't Spider-Man, comic or film related. I watched Spectacular Spider-Man, the TV show, and I was just like, "This is best thing that has ever happened to anyone ever." Oh my god! And from there, I just kind of these days just try to consume any Spider-Man media that's thrown my way. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think he's one of those characters where it's so hard to miss Spider-Man. Like, even if you don't watch a lot of the movies or shows, everyone I feel like has some kind of history with the character, even if they know if they have that history or not. Like, I didn't watch a lot of superhero movies growing up. It wasn't until I was a little older that I was like, oh, I really love these superheroes. I'm going to watch these. Like, the first one came out the year I was born. Like, I'm a 2002 kid. Or no. It came out in 2002. So it came out the year I was born. Those movies should have been, like, my childhood. Like, I should have grown up with those movies, if you will. I didn't watch any Spider-Man movie until about 2020. So I was really late to the game when it comes to all that, which was honestly kind of cool though, because then I had this like unbiased journey through all of them. Like, there wasn't one that was like, he's my Spider-Man or they're my Spider-Man. It was like, they're all my Spider-Man now, I guess. I just watched them in order as they kind of, as I went through them.
That's so interesting.
That's really cool. Well, I'm curious, was it because of No Way Home and you heard that there was like, a new one coming out and that there was whispers about what it could include and you were like, okay, I've got to watch this?
You know what? No, because I don't think there was a remnant of any of that yet. To be fair, up until that point, I knew Spider-Man. I knew like Infinity War. I think maybe I saw Homecoming up until that point. Like, I was, that was the point. It was like a couple years prior. I was getting all the MCU stuff. But even like growing up, like, it was impossible to avoid Spider-Man. Like, I had Spider-Man action figures, Spider-Man backpacks. Like, everyone I knew, like, growing up, I like remember like Spectacular Spider-Man being on TV, and I have this like vivid like memory of Spider-Man chasing Green Goblin on like Halloween. Like, that is such like ingrained into my head. And like Tobey Spider-Man, again, like, that was everywhere when I was growing up. Like, he was the biggest thing ever. So yeah, no, it's always just kind of been ingrained into my culture, and I'm curious to see. Again, we all seem to have some sort of history with the characters. I'm curious to see kind of where our biases sit, where we're going to be ranking each of these movies. So I think this should be pretty fun.
Absolutely.
So yeah, let's get this thing started with the 2002 Spider-Man. Just Spider-Man, which I noticed as I saved this photo, that's a weird haircut they gave him on this poster. I feel like he doesn't normally look like that.
It feels like they've always just pasted his head onto someone else.
I wonder what the direction was for Tobey to like where to look and like, can you look this way or that
Yeah.
way? It's like to look very dramatic. Like this is like a huge comic book movie, and you have to look like you're Spider-Man or something. Okay, gotta look that way. So yeah, it's a really cool picture actually. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if there's a clip of like Tom Holland talking about the poster for No Way Home, which is very obviously just a CGI rendering of his Iron Spider suit, and he's like, I've never stood like this in my life. Like, why is this pose they've like with the open arms? It's like, what?
That's amazing. But what's your guys' kind of opinion on this first movie here? Are you guys a fan of it, or are you guys like, nah?
I think it's great. I really do.
I
think this is kind of like the class in so many films have taken inspiration from this film, and it just really gets it right. I think the dichotomy between Peter and Norman and how we follow both of their narratives is really, really great.
Yeah,
I agree with that. Yeah, it's just like that kind of introduction to a comic book movie, but it doesn't feel like a comic book movie at the same time. You know what I mean? Like you've understand these characters, where they are, in their journey, and as this is a great introduction, to Spider-Man, I think it just sets so many foundations down, for Peter, for Norman, for MJ, and it's just like where do we go from that, and then go on to Spider-Man 2. So I think this one just sets so many emotional roots into this story, and where we go from there.
I agree. I think it's a great like you said. I think like a great foundation for not only like the two that follow this movie, but I would also argue just Spider-Man fans in general. Like I think it gives you kind of all the clip notes to what you can kind of expect from Spider-Man. Like it tells you who he is, what kind of character Peter Parker is. I think starting with Green Goblin's always a solid choice, and I think William, I feel like at this point has turned into such a huge household name, and I feel like his performance in this movie is so much fun to see. Like a young, like I don't know, like I feel like it's interesting because obviously he comes back within the MCU at a later point, but like I'm not sure if his MCU appearance would have worked as well if he didn't just absolutely destroy it in that first movie. And by the way, like so much memeable stuff with him. Like I love his like, I'm somewhat of a scientist myself. Like all of those kind of things are so good. Like he plays that villain so well. Like I think that's a highlight of this movie for me is him. Like I think he steals the show in this movie.
Yeah, for sure. I love Willem Dafoe's performance. Like he is a force of nature when it comes to performances, or when it comes to like villains. He's just takes the show for me. Like he steals it. So I love it. Yeah, he's a great. He's
so good. Yeah,
he really is fantastic, and the dialogue. Like I think this goes for all of the Raimi trilogy, but it's really corny and really easy, but it's really heartfelt, and it really gets to the core of like the emotions. I think that you can sometimes run into the issue of balancing comedy and emotion, and I think that film really, really gets it. There's a moment at the end when Norman's like, haven't I been a father too? And Peter's like, oh, I had a father, his name's Ben Parker. And you just kind of like, ooh, you're hit with something like, not necessarily unexpected, especially with all, exactly, you're feeling something within you. I think that's one of the greatest things that the film has. It manages to really balance those tones. I think Sam Raimi as a director gets that really well in most of his films, but I think that trilogy specifically is the reason why so many people hold it on such a high pedestal, because it made them feel something.
I think these movies at their core have a lot of heart, and I think that's probably what makes them stand out among the rest. Not to say the other movies don't have heart, because a lot of these absolutely do, but I feel like I also feel like I'd argue this one and the next one, I feel like, and Spider-Man 2, I feel like they feel like the most comic booky out of like the 10 movies we have here. Like I feel like they feels like it's ripped out of a comic book, opposed to something like the Amazing Spider-Man movies that feel like, oh, they're movies about Spider-Man, where this feels like you're kind of reading like a Spider-Man comic book, if you will. I feel
when I was reading Spider-Man Life Story, that somehow kind of gave me that. It kind of replicated. I don't know what it is. It did feel like, this movie Spider-Man here it did feel like you're watching a comic book movie, but it didn't feel out of place. It didn't feel like, there was something, oversaturated in comic book terms. It's just like you're on that world. It just does it really well.
Yeah, and I also think sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go on. Yeah.
Got it.
a lot of the like, I think if in fact all the Spider-Man films are products of their time. They all reflect exactly what kind of the genre was doing at that point. Whether it be something more gritty like Amazing Spider-Man 1, or then something more comic booky like Amazing Spider-Man 2. Those two films are a good example of, they're both reactions to what people felt at that time. I think No Way Home, as the most recent one, is also one that is a reaction to, what people wanted. And I think you really get that here. It was like kind of 2002. There's a lot of elements that are very, kind of like post 9/11, like really like about togetherness and, community. And I think that really is effective.
I agree. And I also think like around that time, I felt like a lot of these superhero type movies we were getting, they were a little ashamed to be comic book movies. Like they weren't like, if you're looking at the X-Men movies, like they were so afraid to be a comic book movie. And I feel like these movies never did. Like they were just comic book movies. Like they weren't like, Spider-Man has a red suit. Of course he would. Like, why wouldn't he? Like that was just a thing. So I definitely very much appreciate it for that. Where would you guys have it on your personal ranking? Like where does it sit for you guys?
I think for me, it's about like number 4. It's pretty much out of the 10 that we're talking about here. It's in that higher, it's in the top half, and it's really pushing. I mean, I think it's a near perfect film. I think the one thing that I would say about it is that it doesn't feel quite as interested in its supporting cast as I feel it wants to be. I think a lot of the other Spider-Man films get that a little bit better, but in especially when it comes to MJ and Harry, I don't feel like as characters we really understand them because it's so laser focused on Peter and Norman.
Yeah.
I also have it in my top 4 as well. Like there is a lot to go through with the side characters, and it kind of not hit the notes with that. But at the end of the day, this is like a comic book movie. It just has that fun, in it. Like you kind of have the tones balance as well. And again, what you said, Tom, about like the balance. Raimi really balanced the tones between that, and I really like it. It's a really good film.
Yeah, you said you're number 4.
Yes.
Okay, number 4. That's a great spot. I was leaning. I was going back and forth here. I was either at first I had it at number 6, and then right before we kind of went going, I was like, you know what? I think it has to be in my top 5 because I think it is just. It's a very classical movie, man. And I feel like, especially like I've seen a lot of people start playing this every Thanksgiving. Just because they have like that Thanksgiving meal like halfway through the movie, so I feel like that almost adds a little bit of it's a movie you can just watch every year now because it's like it's a holiday movie or whatever.
Oh yeah, for sure. It really, I think especially the like time of year that they. I mean, I don't even know when Spider-Man released. Maybe it was May, but I'm thinking specifically about No Way Home here.
Sure.
It came out in December. And so it really like, Christmas and winter, it really kind of reminds me of that. And it feels, like cozy, even though that's a very, like, it's a really like difficult film with all the trauma that Peter goes through. But you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's my comfort film. Okay.
So apparently it came out May 3rd, 2002. So yeah, it was like
the day before Star Wars Day.
Amazing.
How dare they?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think it's my number 5. It's good. It's not in my top 4. Like I feel like I like 4 of these slightly more than this one, but an absolutely great start to this list, I think. Absolutely amazing.
For sure.
All right, next up here we have Spider-Man 2 going right on track. This one, man, I feel like this one's such a cult classic. Just such a cult classic.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
What you guys kind of take on
just look at that. I mean,
Oh.
yeah, just just
my
a series of noises, just a series of like, oh, what a movie,
Well,
what a
next up,
picture.
no,
Yeah.
moving on.
It'd be like,
Yeah.
we would just be walking to an art gallery and be like, oh my god, look at this. This is so incredible. Ooh,
Yeah. That's what. Yeah, let's just put Spider-Man 2 in an art gallery somewhere. Just have it like, on repeat. No, actually, I was at the theater recently. I was watching The Importance of Being Earnest, and there was a moment when I was like, "Oh my god, this is the play that MJ does in Spider-Man 2." Like, that's my culture. That's my level of culture. I don't know Oscar Wilde. I just know Sam Raimi.
Oh my god. It's like that Marty McFly meme, like he's like, oh, I've seen this.
Yeah, it's a classic.
It's a classic.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like jumping the gun with my ranking. I feel like this is almost the best a live action Spider-Man can get. Like I almost think this is almost
sure.
like the pinnacle.
Yeah.
This is something that I did not expect when when watching the Spider-Man content, like the animated or reading the graphic novels, and then this one really hit really hard. Like you get to learn about Octavius, and then Peter Parker's like life is just falling apart. You're losing the superpowers, and not to be with MJ, and it's just like really hits you hard. Like it kind of just relates you towards the audience, just like whenever life just gets really bad, like Peter Parker just been through this, so it's like, wow, this is like when superheroes get to connect to the audience a bit, and it's just like you get to understand the characters a bit more in this one as well. So it's just like it just sets again the emotional tones for this movie. It's just brilliant. It is definitely way high in my list. So yeah.
Yeah, there's a moment, and I feel like this moment distills such a pure feeling of just comic bookness when, and this comes up on Twitter quite a lot, and rightfully so, but it's the moment when, Peter seals back the suit, and, J. Jonah does the, I want Spider-Man, and then, like, you get the newspaper, he flies out of the newspaper, he's swinging through the city, Danny Elfman's score is just going for it, and then we zoom out and we see that everything we've been seeing is in the sunglasses of Doc Ock, and then like we zoom out and it's him, and then he climbs up the building. That there is such a brilliant camera move, and just something that I feel like we would be very lucky if any Spider-Man film, live action that is, could ever come close to eliciting that same feeling of just like, oh my god. And then that all goes into the train the train scene, and the moment like when he's unmasked in front of all of the people. I think that these films really are so good with balancing those epic moments and the moments that make you just really, really choke up, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think I do think this is probably the most personal Spider-Man movie has ever got. I guess outside of like the animated ones, but like as sort of live action ones, like I feel like this is the most personal Peter Parker story. I love his journey of like trying to discover what is important about Spider-Man. Like, can Peter Parker live a normal life, or does the world need Spider-Man? And there's that like fantastic scene towards the end of the movie. I think it's Spider-Man 2 with like Aunt May like at the garage sale, and he's like showing him what Peter Parker or what Spider-Man really means to the world. And there's like people, I know people joke about the scene now, but there's that train scene when he's passed out in the train, and he's like, he's a hero. Like there's that scene that I think is like, just, I feel like there's just like a compilation in this movie, just like some of my favorite Spider-Man moments of all time. And I think you put it together and it kind of like just like organically makes one of the best Spider-Man movies.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And when you listen to the score for this movie, it's just like, again, it's still a banger. It's still a banger, listening to it. And what I really love about this film is that it just really dissects, what it means to be a hero, and it just explores in many different ways. And if anyone hasn't seen Spider-Man 2, oh my god, you're very lucky. You're very lucky not to see this. It is phenomenal.
Yeah, out of all of the ones that are about to get re-released in the UK, I'm kind of going back and forth as to like, oh, is it time? You know, I rewatched them a couple of years ago, and I like to give it a big long while until I rewatch something. But how can I not pass up the opportunity to see Spider-Man 2 on the big screen? It just sounds phenomenal.
It does, yeah. And something that you just mentioned, like I think it's the most artsy Spider-Man movie as well. Like the certain camera angles, the way they do like the soundtrack's amazing. There's that really crazy scene with Doc Ock in the beginning of the movie where they're like dissecting him in the lab, and his arms start waking up, and they just start throwing them. Like,
terrifying.
They would never do that now. And like I love the MCU, but that's something that they would never do in like the MCU now. It just wouldn't.
Oh
happen.
yeah.
Yeah, that would be like a special presentation or something like that, or a Marvel Spotlight. They wouldn't put that in one of their tentpole. And I think that you're right. This is the most like the creative vision of the director is the most prevalent in this one out of all of the live action ones. And you know, I mean, I wrote an entire essay about this in college. I did a major project on just the Spider-Man films and the business versus the art, and you know. It seems to me like, especially with the next three we're going to talk about, studio meddling became such a hindrance onto these films. And it's a real shame because you look at the first two, and I even think you look at elements of all of them, and you just think, wow, the director, the writers, they had such a vision here. And in moments, it comes together so beautifully. I think this is the peak of that.
I agree.
And then one thing, you know, when you look at those films, they make it really, you know, bring it to life. Like, you gotta look at the practical effects for this movie. They went so hard. They went so hard for this movie. It's so good. And when you look at the costumes, and you know, when you look at like the design, and you know, it's just the visual story that just makes it, you know, what Spider-Man is supposed to be. And you can really see that in the first two. I love it. It's brilliant.
Yeah, they made Doc Ock's arms for real, and that's so exciting. That's just cool, man. That's just
Has anyone
cool.
seen the behind the scenes where Willem Dafoe is like operating it, and
oh my god!
Like...
See, you couldn't do that now. Like in No Way Home, they're CGI, and the CGI looks great, but you couldn't just have Willem Dafoe just be like, okay, it's my turn. I'm gonna do it my way, like, and it's fantastic.
Absolutely. And Doc Ock, I would argue, is one of the greatest like comic book movie villains of all time.
Yeah.
Like, I think somehow he's better than Green Goblin in the first movie. Maybe that's a hot take.
And he's a really tragic character as well.
Yeah.
Very, very tragic character, and he's very complex, and you know, his arc is beautiful in this film. Like, he really understands, you know, at the end. And I love when characters are developed and they are not used for like for other movies as well. Like, you get to see you know, Green Goblin, you know, Osborn, he actually, you know, what led to his demise at the end of the first one, and then this one you get to really see the horror on, you know, Doc Ock's face, and he's like, oh my god, I've been a monster, you know, this entire movie. And it's really heartbreaking, you know, for that end of the movie.
Yeah, the line where he just says, he almost whispers it, and he says, I will not die a monster. That just, like, I don't even know. I don't even know. Yeah, it is peak. There's just something that it does to me that I'm just like, wow, that's so chilling. Because isn't that almost everyone's greatest fear? That you will die a shadow of who you feel you are? that you will die this kind of monster?
Yeah.
I don't want to get deep right now, but
Oh my god, philosophy.
and that's really terrifying. And they really got to the core of why that would be terrifying.
Yeah, oh my gosh, it's so good. Yeah, I think actually, I think outside of the third one, I think they do such a great job at putting a emphasis on the villains, like giving them that time to grow and have their own particular arcs. And I'm not saying other comic book movies don't do that, but I feel like that's something people forget. You can't just stick a villain in there and be like, well, be interesting. It's like, well, no, you have to write it. You have to actually take them on that journey.
Yeah, we were watching Deadpool, weren't we, Tom? For this week, and we were just talking about the villain, which was Francis or Ajak, and we were just talking about like why villains are just, you know, there. They're just there, and they just don't do anything for the plot, or just like trying to be evil, I guess, or something like that. And, you know, it's just like come on, you need to develop something around the character. You need to
Yeah.
develop it in one way or to get to understand about the villain. So, yeah, this one just takes it for the cake. It's just like, oh my god,
Sure.
this is chef kiss. This is
So
brilliant.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, think about any of your favorite comic book films, even films in general. 99% chance that the villain is spectacular,
Yeah.
because even if that's just because the villain speaks to you personally, they're normally at the center of these kinds of films, and they're massively important.
Oh, true. So true.
I agree. Yeah, 100%. Where does this one sit on your guys' ranking?
Number 2.
Number two.
Number 2.
Actually, number 2.
Amazing.
Yes.
Mine's at number 3, so we're right there.
Ah.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Very much on
yeah.
par.
Okay.
I'm seeing where yours is going already.
Yeah.
Oh, it's gonna be fun. Well, let's finish off the trilogy with Spider-Man 3.
Well.
Can we
I
have
just want to say that
This
poster,
poster
though,
goes hard though. Yeah, like,
that
this
is so
poster-
great.
It's
It's
brilliant.
so good.
Brilliant.
It's brilliant. Like
Yeah.
whoever does the poster for these are just like
So good,
trying so
yeah.
hard. Like I'm gonna
Yeah.
cook. I'm a cook with this. You know what he's
Yeah.
trying to go. I love it. It's brilliant. Spider-Man 3. Yeah, this was surprising to say. To watch at the end of the trilogy, you know, when you went from 1, you're like, oh, this is great, and then you go from 2, you're just like, oh my god, what did I just witness? What? Whoa, okay, and then 3, you're just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I want to say about the poster. Only recently did I figure out, and I'm a man, I'm a grown man, and only recently did I figure out that this is Spider-Man looking at his own reflection. I thought it was like the edge of a building, and it was 2 Spider-Men back to back, like looking at each other. Like, what are you doing here? It's like, how did I not figure that out? Come on, man.
The multiverse.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think this film is good, but I think that like when you compare it to the other 2.
Yeah.
Good doesn't cut it really. Like I think there's so many great things in this film. I really wish that we were in a position where the Raimi cut, the fabled, if it exists, I wish that we were in a world where that would be released, and I really don't think that is ever going to be true. There's an editor's cut which has got some really interesting stuff in it added back in. There's so much that Sam Raimi wanted to do, and there's so much that is in there. I think the action is really great, and I think contrary to popular belief, I think he does the symbiote story excellently. I think there's too many cooks in the kitchen. Too much is going on. There's just too much happening in one movie.
We need Venom. We need Venom in the story.
Yes, that was Avi Arad, just like with this.
Yeah.
We must have it.
No, this is one movie. No, that's one movie, not Morbius. Venom. Yes.
Oh my god.
No, I think this is a movie, like, it's interesting because this is one of them I think is having a bit of a renaissance now that's kind of come back out, and everyone's like, wait, this movie's amazing now. And I think it's one of those things where back then, in contrast to the first 2, people are like, yeah, this freaking sucks. Like, what the heck happened?
Yeah.
But I think retrospectively, we've got a lot of really bad comic book movies since this movie has come out, and I'd say this for a couple of movies on this list. I think retrospectively they do get better if you look at kind of the grand scale of what is a bad comic book movie. Now, I no longer think this is a bad comic book movie, but a mid comic book movie. Like I don't think it exists in the worst of all time list. It's just like, it's there. It's fun.
Yeah.
Like
It's all right. It's all right.
Yeah. And there's still so many memorable moments from this movie. Like I'd argue the Toby dancing scene, the like emo Parker, is still one of the most iconic superhero things ever made. Like it's still like people will remember that to the end of time. I feel like that is
a lot of people
dance.
as well think that Sam Raimi and Tobey Maguire kind of had lost it. But no, they understood exactly what they were doing. They were in on the joke, and they wanted us to laugh along, and I think that's great. One of the quotes that, again, I'm going to bring up this essay that I did on the Spider-Man films, but one of the quotes that was that even the fans agreed that it was a calamitous mess. And I think it's a mess for sure, but calamitous I think is a bit much. I think there is so much to love in this film. Danny Elfman's gone, but I can't even remember the name of the composer. That's really upsetting. But
Giacchino.
like
It's Michael Giacchino.
It wasn't Michael Giacchino. No, it was somebody else. Something Christopher, I think. let me Google it. Spider-Man 3 composer Christopher Young. And he
right, yes.
the scene where the symbiote latches onto Peter at his lowest moment when he's feeling the most pain, and we get that shot where it crawls up his body, and then like the he is engulfed in darkness and the screen is engulfed in darkness, and then we zoom out and he says, "Where am I?" and we see the symbiote for the first time, and he plays the symbiote riff like ba 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 ba, like really like
that's engraved in my head.
Exactly, it's perfect.
Yeah, no, I think and I think what you guys were saying, prior, I do think any one of these villains would be great if it was just one of the villains. Like I think this movie taught people you can't have more than one comic book villain in a movie. And I don't think that's true. I think you definitely can. I think stuff like the Batman showed you can have multiple villains and they can work. But like this is just like, let's have 3 main villains and let's have all 3 storylines at the same time running at the same exact speed, and they all just kind of run at each other towards the end of the movie. It's like, whoa, what am I supposed to do? Like, I think if it was just Sandman, it would have been great. I actually think Sandman's great in this movie. I think it's amazing. Outside of like the retcon stuff, I love it. I think the Venom stuff is great. I think Goblin could have been great. Like all those like potential lines are there. I'm like, these are all cool ideas. It's just you did it all at once, and I can't focus on just one at a time. So.
Yeah, Sandman was a really, tragic character in this film as well. Like, there's some really heartbreaking scenes, in this one. When he becomes Sandman, and when he tries to pick up the ring. It's so sad. And that one was the highlight for me. Like, because I love when you get to explore a villain and you get to understand them, and I think this film does it pretty well, but there's a lot of villains in this, and you just feel like oh my god, I feel overwhelmed. I feel like we should have focused on one villain and just like what Sam Raimi should have done like for the past 2 films, and he does it so well in those. And this one just like felt like I was on this roller coaster of like, okay, I just missed this. No, wait, where's the context? Oh my god, just felt like that for me.
It's over.
It's over.
It's done. I think the final battle is a really great example of like the potential of the film. The moment when like Peter is tied down by Venom and being punched by Sandman, and like it feels really desperate. We even have a very convenient news reporter being like, "Oh my god, this is so brutal." But like the moment when Harry comes to save the day and the Spider-Man theme plays in all its glory, and they take each other's hand, and like if that moment in isolation, again, it's just like, wow, if this film had truly been allowed to be what Raimi wanted it to be, we could have had some incredible stuff. Obviously, there's the big thing where the way that Harry finds out about, the way that he changes his mind is his butler's like, "Hey, I got some news for you." Whereas in the editor's cut, it's him looking at a picture of him, MJ, and Peter. He remembers his friends. He remembers, what that meant to him, and he decides to help them. And like again, I just think the concepts that this film provides are so strong. They just don't always work in execution. I
think like as we're talking about this, I'm thinking, I don't know if you guys have played it yet, but the Spider-Man 2 I feel like is the game Spider-Man 2 I feel like is kind of the same story, or has the same elements. Like you have Sandman, you have Harry, he's not Green Goblin here, but you have Harry kind of as the villain, and you have Venom, and I feel like it does kind of all those things better. And I think the only reason it is better is because you're able to you got 20 hours or whatever to spend on this story, and you can let it sit. And these characters like Sandman, he's not the main villain, but he's a very compelling villain. Throughout the game, you're trying to figure out what's wrong with him, how can I help him, what can I do to service him in this moment. So I don't know. Again, if you spent more time with some of these ideas, I think they would have been great. It's just a little frustrating.
Absolutely.
Where would you guys put this one on your list?
Why did I put it on my list?
Well, I put it at number 7.
Okay.
So that kind of almost evenly spaced.
I put it on number 7. Tom, are you copying me?
John, what's going on? What's going on right now?
Are you spying over me?
Yeah, actually, I have a live feed straight into your room.
Oh my god! Are you in the
Enhance.
walls?
Oh my gosh. This one, like my bottom couple, I went back and forth because like I think I enjoy every movie on this list. Like I at least have somewhat of enjoyment out of all of them. This one's at my number 9. It is my second to last favorite. But I still really enjoy this movie. Like it's a movie I can turn on and just have a really fun time with. Like shut your brain off, enjoy Spider-Man fighting Venom and Sandman and Green Goblin. Like you can just kind of have that fun.
It might be the most fun out of all of these. Just kind of
Yeah.
like that kind of like switch your brain off, just enjoy it. At least out of the live action ones. Again, it feels strange to rank all them together because the consensus is, live action is good, but when we get to the animated ones, that's when we're cooking with gas.
That's where we're
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, our next one here is the Amazing Spider-Man. Going into the Andrew Garfield era of Spider-Man. A little bit.
Yeah, I feel like you can already see a decline in the poster. Like I feel like we had it so great.
Where's the movie poster guy? Where did they go? You're like, oh my god.
Oh,
wow.
I'm interested to see what you've chosen for the Holland ones because those posters are quite something.
Yes.
Oh
indeed.
Boy.
The Amazing Spider-Man. Do you know? I love how they just add the Amazing Spider-Man, like to show he's amazing. Like unless I don't know if what's it referencing to. I don't know. They just add in that Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, just his slogan, I guess. We're like, well, we didn't add it last time. I guess we can add it this time.
It's been like 4 years since Spider-Man 3.
That's been in the drafts. We can use it, guys.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, what's your guys' kind of take on this one?
Ooh.
Well, I think this is a cut above Spider-Man 3, but it suffers from a lot of the same issues. They're bringing in Mark Webb, and they really want him to bring that same humanity and that same emotion that we see in something like 500 Days of Summer. Unfortunately, you still see those elements of studio meddling, and I think editing is a real one for this one. So much of it is chopped up, and there's loads of evidence in the deleted scenes and in the trailers where things were just removed and they rehauled a load of it, and it works better than Spider-Man 3. I think that's because it has a central focus on the lizard. And I think that really works. I think the way that they express this new Spider-Man, somebody who is kind of driven a little bit by angst, this teenage moodiness. And I know a lot of people didn't like that. Oh, you're making Spider-Man, like dark and dull. But I think that actually that's a really unique take on it and a really interesting way to do it. I think a lot of things really work in this film, like Andrew Garfield. I think he's spectacular. He's amazing. And so him and Emma Stone, like Gwen Stacy. I think that all of those elements are, James Horner's score as well, just like those really uplift this one.
There's a lot of things to consider when you're watching the Spider-Man franchise. Like it's not as like, it doesn't feel linear to like what you're trying to see. You're going back from the beginning of Spider-Man every time. You're trying to figure out where he is in his life, or is it the beginning or the end. And when it comes to Andrew Garfield, there is something really cool about it. I don't know, there's something cool about like to explore this version of Amazing Spider-Man. And there isn't a lot of things memorable about this movie, but I really loved the one sequence that I really liked, that was when when he was swinging through the cranes because of the construction guy. I've forgotten a bit where was that in the movie, but I loved that, and I thought it was the idea of like bringing people together and then helping Spider-Man towards that. I love when moments in in comic books when they get people together and they help the hero, and it's just like to unite in many ways. So there is some stuff to think about, like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man arc in this one was like to what it means to be Spider-Man. But Spider-Man 2, if you're trying to compare that to the Amazing Spider-Man, there's like, okay, we've gone to a different jump, but I agree, this is slightly bit better than Spider-Man 3.
Okay. This might be a really hot take, and this might be one I'm kind of working out as we talk about this. I think this might be my least favorite Spider-Man movie. I think this is at my number 10.
Ooh.
And I think that's just because, like, I think some of these on this list might be, like, technically worse movies, right? I think maybe if you're going from a technical standpoint, they might be like, oh yeah, this is a worse movie. I think this is just a movie I remember the least, though. Like, I think it's one of the more less memorable like, if I go into, like, Spider-Man 3, I don't think that's a great movie, but there's so many moments in my head that I can remember and I can have a joy when I'm thinking about that scene. Same with, like, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. There's so many scenes in that movie that I would say I love. And then this one, I was thinking about as I'm kind of ranking this for this episode, I was like, what do I like about this movie? I'm trying to think about these moments from the movie, and I was coming at a blank, and I was like, maybe this is the one I enjoy the least here. Like, I think, like, there is some good stuff in here. Like, I do remember there being some really fun fight scenes. Like, I like how and it's a weird contrast because I think Andrew's my favorite Spider-Man. Like, I love as an actor, as how he plays Spider-Man. He's one of my favorites. Like, there's so many great moments. I love the scene, like, with the cops when he, like, takes the gun away and he's like, oh, what are you gonna do? You know, like, that whole thing, and how he kind of his body movements, how he jumps up and down. There's that scene, like, with, like, the lizard where he's tying him up and he goes around underneath it. Like, there's some really cool stuff in here. It's just the one I find myself wanting to watch the least and having the, like, least amount of, like, things to say about it. So, but like you said, I do think it's an improvement upon Spider-Man 3, like, overall. Like, I don't think it does, I think, an overall better job at telling its story than the last one did, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think it also kind of repeats a lot of the classic origin elements of the first Spider-Man, that therefore makes it a little bit less like, exciting to rewatch. It's not doing a whole lot new, but I do think stuff like the bridge scene where he truly that's the moment where he kind of thinks to himself, this isn't about vengeance, this is about, I can be something, I can be this symbol. It's you mentioned the Batman earlier. It's kind of like the entirety of Batman's arc in that film, and done in one scene. And I wouldn't say it's nearly as effective, but I would say that it does kind of get to that similar core of, oh yeah, I can be this symbol, I can be a hero, a protector, a silent guardian, a watchful protector, a dark knight. No, but it kind of feels like this film is a bit of a response to the Dark Knight. It feels like this is, we're in the 2010s now, everything is realistic, and it kind of loses something because of that, I would argue.
Yeah, I would say so. Like, it's interesting because we are definitely in that era of, like, everything has to be cool now, right? I feel like the Dark Knight trilogy kind of sparked a new kind of generation on us, where it's like, oh, everything is cool and it's more a little bit darker, a little bit more edgy. I feel like that kind of bled into, like, the DCEU era and those early kind of eras, and I do think it bled into Spider-Man a little bit, where it's like, well, he has to be cool now. He's cool, and I never hate that. Like, I think Spider-Man is inherently cool, so I never had an issue with that. But yeah, I don't know. This one's definitely an interesting one. Like, I feel like it's just the Spider-Man movie a lot of people just don't talk about that much. Like, I feel like people just, it isn't part of the conversation as much as it would for other people.
Yeah, it's not really to have in a discussion. I don't know why. It's odd. It's odd when you talk about the Amazing Spider-Man. It's it's interesting.
Where would you guys have it on your ranking?
All right, this is the test, isn't it? This is how we figure out if we have the same ranking.
Right, you go first, Tom. You go first.
No, I want you to go first, so it makes sure that I'm not copying you.
I'll prove that you're not living. You're not living in my world. Okay, where did I put it? Oh yeah, number 5.
No, I've got number 5 too.
You're kidding! What do you mean?
No, we definitely have the same ranking. We just have the same one.
How can this be? Okay. This is
I think this is kind of like...
This is not staged. This is not staged at all. No.
I'm being punked. You guys came with the same list.
We planned this. This is all an elaborate plan.
We did not even talk to each other about this. We didn't even like...
No, yeah. We never talk outside of recording. We hate each other.
Yeah, I like this, but... No.
No, yeah, I think the fifth, the thing about this ranking out of 10, I think, at least in my opinion, the fifth and the sixth spot, that's the middle, right? That's just like the middle of the road, like. And I think that while I feel overwhelmingly positive about Amazing Spider-Man, I think that you're absolutely right in the sense that there's less to talk about, and it is kind of middle. It's not nearly as memorable as the others, and it does have a lot, but that, like, only after a rewatch am I like, oh yeah, that's quite good.
Amazing, yeah. And yeah, I feel like we should just jump into the second half of this. I always get really sad though, because I always wanted that third movie. Like, each Spider-Man up until this point is going to have a third movie, and Andrew's just the one with the two, and it's like, that's sad. I feel bad for you, buddy.
It is. Yeah, and that cliffhanger as well. Just
my gosh.
Posted design kind of.
That is quite good. Yeah, to be fair.
Yeah, it's quite good. Yeah,
I like it.
I remember the hype.
I
remember the hype.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really like engaging like time to to be a Spider-Man fan, like the Amazing Spider-Man 2. Like, they brought in the villains, and at the time I didn't really think about like how many villains they were going to bring into this movie. It was like 3 villains. I was like, okay, cool, let's see what they've got for this. But as we learned from Spider-Man 3, all those villains, and how do you connect all of those stories all together? Spider-Man 2, it kind of cooked. Trust me, it kind of cooked on this one. With this movie. Like, there's some really good stuff in this movie, but then it just goes down, down somewhere that you don't want to talk about. But then there's some really good stuff, and then it just goes back down. It's like a roller coaster, really.
I've always called this the best worst Spider-Man movie, because I think it has my favorite stuff in any Spider-Man movie, and then it just has the worst, and it's just like really good, really bad, really good, and it feels like it's just like Spider-Man 3. It's had a huge renaissance. Like, I have friends now who are like, this is my favorite Spider-Man movie, and I was like, you know what, I can understand, because like there's really good stuff in here that I can see why you would love it that much.
Yeah, I think the best worst Spider-Man film is on it. I mean, that's basically, because it feels like scene after scene. It's like, here's the coolest, best Spider-Man you've ever seen, and then here's I don't even know what something completely different, and then we kind of go between the two. I think everything about the visuals of this film is spectacular. All the swinging and all the action and the score is so brilliant, and all the stuff between Peter and Gwen, I think, is pretty phenomenal. Same as the first film. The villains, I mean, if we were ranking Spider-Man villains, these might just be the bottom 3.
Yeah,
because it's just, I mean, like, can you even call it 3? I mean, is Rhino even a I don't even know. But like, especially third go at a Green Goblin-esque character, it's pretty. It just doesn't work, I don't think. And I mean, I would controversially say that they totally should have brought in Rhino and Green Goblin from this film into No Way Home. I think a lot of people are like, oh yeah, no, it's fine that we don't have them. I think they should have committed and had them back. And I do think that there's a lot you can do there, but yeah, it doesn't really. And the whole thing with Peter Parker's parents, it's just not really.
I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, right.
Oh yeah. Oh no.
Yeah, no. Again, like the parents thing, the villains thing. I absolutely hate what they did with Green Goblin. Like, it's one of the most, like, I feel like that's somehow even more rushed than the last time they tried to do the Harry Green Goblin thing, which is impressive. Like, none of that works for me, and I think that just, I don't think that stuff is good. And then you just have so many of these little moments. Like, I love the little side plot line with Peter and like the little kid, and he walks him home, and he's like, oh, I can fix this. And his thing at the end, like the kid being the one to bring him back into Spider-Man. Like, I think what I love about Andrew's Spider-Man is he feels like a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Like, he feels like he's out there being that guy, helping the neighborhood. He has such this energy. So many of these little moments. Like, I love the moment when it's him and Gwen in like the hallway, and he's like tripping the guys. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, guy. Well, here you go. Like, that's the most Peter Parker thing you could do.
Yeah.
And then like, not to jump to the end of the movie, but like, I genuinely think Gwen's death is one of the most beautiful comic book scenes of all time. Like, obviously it's tragic, it's sad, but like the way it's shot and how she's going down and he's trying to twist his way down to her is like, oh my gosh, it might be one of the best, like one of my favorite comic book scenes of all time. Like, I think it's a phenomenally well done scene. It's like, where was this the whole movie? This is insane. Like,
I think from there until the end as well, like that whole final 10 minutes, it brings out so many emotions. I mean, obviously, basement of origins, you know, like that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
But there's something the opposite of what you said about Amazing Spider-Man. Amazing Spider-Man 2, even the worst stuff to me is insanely memorable and insanely funny.
Agree.
And that in itself is
it's my birthday.
All I need. Yeah, exactly.
He remembered my name.
Yeah.
And
oh
it's a really odd, thing. When you're trying to dissect this film, it's like there's some really good stuff in this one. And as you said, Daren, like about the Gwen's death, and that was like, whoa, okay, we didn't expect this in the movie at all. And the movie just goes in different directions, and I think that's what makes this film unique out of the Spider-Man films. Like, there's some really odd directions that it's going to, in the movie, and when it comes to like characters in this one, it just feels like there's some really interesting character development in this movie, but there's some really like, okay, wait, why do we have these characters? And again, it all comes back to the idea of the trilogy of like, we need another Amazing Spider-Man 3, where we got the whole idea of like setting up characters. Like, for example, Felicity Jones' character was set up to be, I forgot the name, that
Black Cat.
Black Cat, that's
Cat,
it. And it was like, okay, well, why was she important in that film? Why did they give importance or significance in the movie? And it's heartbreaking when you learn about Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 3. Yeah, it never came to light, that one. But I would say this is like the guilty pleasure of watching Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Sure.
It's just like, it's so good. Like the introduction, oh my god! Like,
actually, wait. Do you mean the bit with him swinging through the city, or do you mean the bit with his parents on the plane?
No, not with his parents. Not with his parents.
That's peak.
That's peak. The parents, no. Like, he's swinging through the city. Like, oh my god! With the score, with the different camera angles as well. Like, he's going to the city. Like, it feels alive. When you compare that with the other Spider-Man films. But yeah, this one, it's unique.
It is.
For sure.
What are you guys thinking in terms of a ranking? Because I have a really hard time ranking this one.
Here we go. Okay. Right. Shall I go first this time?
You go first. Right, you go first.
Okay. I have it at number 8.
No.
Oh!
We've broken the curse!
Yay!
It's not rigged. Yeah, nice.
Okay, where did I put it? I just literally had it.
It actually is number 8.
Okay, I have the Amazing Spider-Man 2 at number 9.
Number 9.
Fair enough.
Mine's at number 8. I have mine at number 8.
Oh.
Wait. Are we copying each other now?
Oh no!
Oh my god! Oh my god! The curse!
Yeah, no, it was one of those weird things where it's like, I physically enjoy this a lot more than Spider-Man 3 and The Amazing Spider-Man, but I can't put it any higher than number 8, I feel. Like, I just, in good conscience, I can't put it ahead of any of the other ones, because they're significantly better movies, in my opinion. So yeah, we're done with the Andrew trilogy. Or not trilogy, I guess.
Don't remind me.
I'm still waiting. I would still love if they could like.
We have an exclusive pipeline podcast reveal for
you. Let's go. All right, Spider-Man: Homecoming.
All right, okay. I feel like we're seeing a dip in the poster quality a little bit.
Yeah, this one's a bit lazy. Just hanging there.
Like,
what is the font? What is the font for Spider-Man? It just feels like there's no color scheme to it. It just feels like it's Spider-Man. It just feels
because
really bold.
Spider-Man's classic colors of red and yellow.
Really? Oh my god! It's Reverse Flash. It was him all this time.
Oh my god! It was him.
Yeah, very odd choice for
Oh.
that poster.
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
make
boy.
That, yeah.
Where are we at with this one? This one's pretty controversial. I feel like this one gets. I guess this whole trilogy is pretty controversial with many people.
Sure.
Oh
Sure.
yeah. 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 Very controversial.
I feel like this is much like Amazing Spider-Man 2 is middle of the road for me, but it has insane highs and insane lows.
Okay.
Homecoming is middle of the road, and it's just a consistently middling film for me.
Oh, really?
I liken it to something like The Rise of Skywalker, in that every time I think about it, I'm like, yeah, no, this is really great Spider-Man stuff. And every time I watch it, it just doesn't come together for me. I don't feel like the direction is anything special. I don't really connect to any of the characters. I'm not particularly roused by the stakes or the character arcs or the action or anything like that. But it's not bad. It's just kind of there for me. I guess similar to what you're saying about Amazing Spider-Man, it just kind of being the least memorable. This one is just kind of like, yeah, it's a movie.
Sure.
Yeah. When every time I remember about this film, I just feel like, what is making this film like, for me, like really out of place? It just didn't have this vibe at all. You know, like when you're watching the Spider-Man films, like anything in general, there's like a specific vibe. I don't know how to explain it when you're watching it. It just feels like there's some fun to it, or there's something like, Spider-Man about it. It's very hard for me to explain it. But when I remember this, it just feels like kind of nothing for me. Like I just don't really have any feelings towards it. It just feels like a bit of an empty shell, and just like, oh, okay, there's nothing really like quality to watch this. It just feels like they just brought Spider-Man just along the ride. There's something like they tried to add context to it, like in the MCU. Like it's somewhere in the MCU. It just feels like they just bring him out and you're just like, okay, guys, we got Spider-Man. You know Spider-Man. You know him, and just bring him here. And it just feels like they missed the vibe for me. So yeah,
he kind of feels shackled to the MCU at times in his trilogy.
There's no freedom at all when it comes to this as well.
In fairness, there was no freedom. Like, in fairness, they actually had no freedom when making the movie, which is unfortunate. Like, I mean, we're still in that place. Like, we're still like, Spider-Man 4's happening, but like, we can't use this person or this person or this person. So it's like,
oh yeah,
we're still doing this.
and I think as the first film in a trilogy, it's a very strange one, because like with a lot of MCU trilogies, it has to then deal with Infinity War and Endgame, which kind of undoes some of the stuff from this film, and that's a problem with Infinity War and not a problem with this film. But obviously when you watch it, you can't help but think, oh well, he becomes an Avenger 2 seconds later. Or I think about his whole thing with Liz, and I think that's a really great romance. I think it's done really authentically, and the way that he has to continuously choose being Spider-Man over hanging out with his friends is a really nice way to recontextualize his struggles. But then he just kind of forgets about her, and that's it. Like, and the films forget about her, and he develops a crush on MJ off screen.
Yeah, and there's a really a character development for for Peter in this one, to learn about love and relationships towards Liz, and the balance between his superhero life but also his personal life as well. You get to see that in the Spider-Man films, like how he balances it, like especially in Spider-Man 2, like when everything is falling apart, he keeps moving forward. Or when I was reading Invincible, learning about Mark and Eve in that story, it just made it really real about like how they try to balance that life between with love but also saving Earth. And it is a crazy story, Invincible. But when it comes to Spider-Man, it's like, does he learn from any of those things in the story? Is there any consequences for that as well? I mean, there is a part of a consequence when you find out about Michael Keaton's character, like who he is, at the Vulture. He's like, oh my god,
and he's great. Like,
he's great.
That's a really, really great performance.
So good. Yeah. So no, I think For a while, this was my favorite Spider-Man movie. For a while,
Right.
I used to love Homecoming, and I still do. I think it's still, in my opinion, a great movie. And I think it's interesting because I do feel like as more MCU movies have come out, and I think we've had a lot of great ones within these last couple of years, this one has kind of slowly dripped on my list in terms of like the MCU and stuff like that. I do really appreciate how small scale this movie is, though. Like,
Yeah,
this,
me too.
Yeah.
out of all of them, feel like he's a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Like, he is out there saving people, helping people cross the street, doing the small times things. And I really enjoy his arc here about that's what he wants to be. Like, he's worked with Iron Man at this point. He can be an Avenger. He's working with Tony, has the suit. And I feel like a lot of people miss that when talking about the movie. We're like, oh, he just has the suit or whatever. And it's like, but no, his arc is like not needing the suit. His arc is like learning that that's a bit too much, and all he really needs to be is himself. And like, there's that. I love that scene when he's like, "Well, I'm still going to go out anyway." Like, he told me not to, but I have to. That's my responsibility. Like the scene when he's like picking up the like rubble, and he's like, "No, I can't give up. I can't do this." And I think Vulture is, as maybe a very different take on the Vulture than most people are used to. I think Michael Keaton's Vulture is one of my favorite MCU villains. Like, there's that great scene when like he knocks on the door to get Liz, and he opens the door, and we're like, oh, Liz is him, and him is Liz, and it's like, oh my, like what a great reveal. And that car ride to the Homecoming when he knows
with the red light.
That's a very good scene. That was a very good scene. Like, not to take it away from like credits too. Like, it's just like, oh my god, like they actually done something really good in this one as well. For sure.
I know you're Vulture, and you know I'm Spider-Man, and we know each other, knows each other, but we can't say anything. Like, it's oh my god, it's so good. But I also agree with what you said about like Infinity War. Like, that's my one gripe with Infinity War. I love Infinity War. I think it's amazing. But that one thing where like it does kind of undermine his arc about like not becoming an Avenger. Like, he's like, no, I actually can't, because I need to be there for my city. And then 5 minutes later, he's like, I'm an Avenger now, guys. This is sick.
Yes. I think it's even disappointing at the end of the film that he gets back his like Stark tech suit. I would have really liked it if the reward at the end of the film wasn't. It's kind of like, you know, like in Back to the Future, like at the end, the reward that Marty gets is he's got a happy family and they're rich. Capitalism was the winner all along. Where it's kind of similar in this. It's like, he's sorted out his problems. He's learned what he wants to be. Also, he gets the super cool suit because capitalism. It kind of feels to me like maybe if he didn't get that suit at the end, his arc would feel a little bit less. I don't know. There is something definitely about the whole like being tied to Tony Stark. And I used to feel a lot more kind of like aggressively against that, but I feel like no, like it does feel like an interesting way to bring it in, and I like how because when it comes to someone like Mysterio, I think that maybe it's a little bit too tied to Stark, but when it comes to Vulture, I like how the idea is it's about class, it's about the rich and about the working class, and that's something that I feel is really kind of effective.
Yeah, it was strong for Vulture in this one as well. Like, it is a really good character in this movie as well. Like, I wish there was more time to explore, the dynamic between, Spider-Man and Vulture in this one. It just felt like really flat, like kind of flat. But the scene, like between Vulture and then in the car as well between Peter, that was great to really establish that. But I wish there was just more time to explore that.
I agree. And also, poor Vulture, I feel like I loved him. I still love his villain, but like he's kind of got tied into like the Sony verse stuff now, and it's just like
Morbius.
He did it. He's in.
Oh my god.
Oh, what a shame.
Like, oh,
and
boy,
also like and Vulture as well in that like post-credit scene. Like, I feel like he's kind of in the void right now. Like,
why is he
not Vulture? Sorry, Scorpion. Yeah. Like we really need to see more.
I can't believe that like actually happened.
Yeah, right. Like, and also I tell you what, I will never forgive this film. 8 years later, come on, guys.
Oh my god.
I know.
Please, what are you doing?
Spider-Man 4 has to just do it. Just put him in there somewhere.
When you're watching this for the first time in the cinema, like you've just seen that big bold text, like when you got people who are like really into the MCU lore and they're doing the timelines and stuff, and you imagine them just seeing that like, what But
Yeah.
the archives are wrong. How can this be?
How can Avengers take place in 2012 and Homecoming take place 8 years later? You telling me that it's 20? That's during the blip. It doesn't make any sense. Help me.
Yeah.
It's okay, Tom. It's
Oh
okay.
dear. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm at a point with the Michael Keaton thing and the Sony stuff. I kind of hope they just retcon that. Like, I kind of hope they just swipe it under the rug a little bit.
Yeah, it just feels
Yeah.
like they're just being what's the phrase again? A dead horse,
Beating a dead horse.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it just feels like that now. Yeah.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about the Sonyverse in this show in the past, and I'm kind of hoping Craven's done. I hope Venom 3 comes out. I hope Craven comes out, and then they're like, "Well, we're done. Just cut it off.
Yeah, please stop. Please, we need to cook something else, please.
Yes.
Yes,
Where
it's the animated stuff.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
But where would you guys put No Way Home or Homecoming? I'm sorry. Where'd you guys put Homecoming?
Number 9 for me.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, Homecoming's at 8 for me.
Okay.
Oh my god. Okay.
It's my number 6, and it's only at number 6 for me because it's not because I don't like that movie. It's I just like the other movies a bit more. Like it's just
Sure.
That's pretty understandable. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Well, let's go into. I'd argue this is the most controversial. Oh no, never mind.
What, controversial?
No.
Whoa,
I forgot this one came out first.
Oh,
yeah, I
here we
freaking
go.
hate this movie. Oh my gosh. No.
No!
It's utter garbage.
How can this be? Tom, help me. Help me.
Number 10.
Oh my god. I mean, if there was an 11th spot, this would be on it, obviously.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, sure.
It should be the 12th spot, guys. There's more. No.
Yeah, like if the like this is perfect. This is the best comic book film ever made. It is one of the best animated films ever made. It is the best Spider-Man film. It is my 5th favorite film of all time. It is just perfection. And yeah, it is pitch perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
this
agree.
is oh my god. The first time when I watched this film, because okay, so this was like a really awkward moment for me, like when I was watching this film, because if you remember, Tom, I was
I remember.
Yes,
Uh-oh.
I was a huge MCU fan, and this was the time when Endgame came out, and I thought that was the best comic book movie of all time at that point, and I was like, "Look, this is great. I love this." And then when you showed me that film, I was like, I can see it. I can see it. It's not taking. Well, it's very good, but it's not taking my spot for Endgame.
Sure.
And then for years, when I, kindly, matured and thought about like movies and a different way, a different perspective, and then think about comic book movies. Like, okay, what is my stance on comic book movies? And then it all came back to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and oh my god, it is. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. It is the peak of all peaks when it comes to movies like that. You just feel like this is something you need to watch on the big screen. And the sequel to that, of course, the Spider-Verse. And this Into the Spider-Verse, it's art. It is
It's art. Yeah.
It's art.
Yeah. I'm so upset that you never saw it at the cinema, John, because I remember watching this at the cinema and then coming out, I saw it on a massive screen, and I came out and I said to my dad, I was like, is that the best Spider-Man film? Like, because at this point it's like, oh, what's this tiny animated film? It's not like, how could it ever beat something like Spider-Man 2? And I came out and I was like, oh, that's actually incredible. And I spent weeks being like, is this perfect?
Yeah.
He's just trying to process
it. Really is. Yeah.
I think this movie, this is one of those comic book movies that come out every couple of years where it's like, it ups the bar for what we are needing to expect from comic book movies. Like, I love comic book movies. It's very rare going into one and I'm like, I didn't enjoy that. Like, I just love that genre. But like stuff like Logan and Into the Spider-Verse, and even like stuff like Guardians 3 and stuff like that, where it's just like, oh, you can be doing more. Like you can,
Yeah.
go beyond what we all expected these to be. These aren't just fun popcorn flicks. These are cinema. They can be cinema, and this is one of those movies I feel like.
Yeah, and nobody expected it. Like there's that
No,
whole thing where
it came out
at
of
the
nowhere.
Oscars, yeah, like Disney thought that Ralph Breaks the Internet was gonna win the Oscar, and they even printed out those things. And then Spider-Verse was just like, no, this is incredible. And I think that you're right for comic book films, but also for the animated medium.
Yes,
like
it changed everything.
Exactly. Films like Puss in Boots, Last Wish, for instance,
good.
which was one of my favorites of last year. Like
I agree.
that film just, it enters onto the scene and is like, yeah, this is a reaction. Like in its style, it's a reaction to Spider-Verse. Even Inside Out 2, there's a scene with like a PS2 style character. To me, that was like that's a response to Spider-Verse and to what we can now do. Like, we don't have to keep these films in a box. We don't have to go for them all being the same kind of like 3D style that we see a lot in like the 2010s especially. It's like, no, we can really push this, and they have, and I'm so happy that this film exists.
Yeah, man, like when it comes to animation, like I'm a huge anime fan now. I just got into it like a couple of years ago when my friends like introduced me to it, and then when I thought about Spider-Verse, I was like, yeah, this is up there when it comes to animation because they have so much potential and freedom and creativity, and you just feel like you can get lost into it. Like when I watched The Boy and the Heron or How Do You Live, the Studio Ghibli film that just released, and watching animation on the big screen is just an otherworldly experience to watch. You just feel like you've gone somewhere, and that just has that same impact, with Spider-Man. When you listen to the credits, like the opening credits, and the music just like, it just gives me chills still. That just gives me chills still. You listen to Daniel Pemberton's score and just slowly creeping in, and you just feel like, whoa, okay, we're definitely going into a comic book movie. That vibe. Wow.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm kind of have a similar thing with you. I didn't see this in theaters, and I will forever regret myself for not seeing it. Because
God, no!
I didn't have a job then, so I was like, all right, I have money. Am I going to see Into the Spider-Verse, or am I going to see Aquaman? And I saw Aquaman.
I mean, that's a good film.
To be fair, Aquaman is awesome. I think it's great. Yeah.
But it's not Into the Spider-Verse. Like, I'll never not regret that decision. No, it's great. It feels like they threw you into an actual comic book. Like it's like it's one of those movies where I sometimes lack things to say because it's just like, well, it's the best. Like what else is there to say? It's just like one of the greatest movies of all time. Like it's that. Like I always appreciate this movie introducing a whole new generation to a new Spider-Man. Like I think Miles Morales' journey in these two movies are probably some of the best arcs out of any of these movies. Like they're just this perfect arc that he goes through, and his journey to try to become a new Spider-Man. And I like the multiverse. I know now has got overused for a lot of people. It's not as fun as it used to be, but I think a movie like this and like Everything Everywhere All at Once and stuff like that, like it proves like, oh, you can do some really fun creative storytelling with the idea of the multiverse. It doesn't just have to be, oh, here's a character from 10 years ago. Like they can make an actual well-made story. But yeah, it's a perfect movie in my opinion.
And it's all about what does it mean to be Spider-Man? What does it mean to be a hero?
Yes.
And we can express that through different iterations. And that's just so good. I love like in the score how we have like the Miles' theme and the Spider-Man theme, and then during during that brilliant leap of faith sequence, that first swing he has, they play the Spider-Man theme and the Miles theme together because he has become Spider-Man, and that is just perfect.
It's flawless in every way possible, and it's just like the storytelling is just it's perfection. It's just, oh my god, there's so much to like try to
it's just like it's good. Like what else can you say? It's good. And I think this movie does such a good job at, like, we don't get a lot of time with some of these characters. Like, you have, like, your Spider-Ham and Penny and, like, Noir. And somehow, in that short amount of time, they make you just love these characters. And this goes for both of these movies. But, like, they somehow just do it. There was, like, these are amazing characters, and then you have like Peter B. Parker, which somehow became one of my favorite versions of Peter, and then you have Gwen Stacy, which is such a good character, which I'll hold a little bit of that because I know we have another one of these to talk about still, but like it's so good. I love it. Where's it sitting at your guys' list?
Well,
number one.
Number one.
Yeah.
It's my number 2. My number 2.
Well, I
Wow.
mean,
Okay.
I unless your number one is, you know, No Way Home or Far From Home, I can't argue with you.
It's Morbius. I think no.
Oh,
Can you imagine?
I knew it.
I knew it. Not Morbius,
I knew it was
not Michael
Madam Web.
Morbius.
It's Morbin time.
Morbin.
All right, we got Far From Home. This is
Yeah.
one of the most controversial
What
Spider-Man
is
movies.
the poster
This is the
for
one.
Oh
Yeah, this
my
one kind of
God.
whack.
Yeah, that poster. Yeah, there it is.
I'm kind of having bad flashbacks.
I don't like this one.
Secret Invasion. You know, that vibe. It just has that
Oh my
Secret
God.
Invasion, that vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, don't get me started on Secret Invasion. I'll be here.
Yeah.
a while.
We've been through the pain. We've been
I feel
through the
like
pain.
we've all said our piece on Secret Invasion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, they kind of got with the font coloring again. Like, they kind of got the redness, you know.
They're
for the-
committing. They're committing.
They're
yeah.
committing. They
I actually
realize-
really love this suit. I think that the red and black suit
Yeah.
goes hard.
Yeah. It's really good.
Especially like when it's like practical and it's
Yeah.
not like CGI. Like oh yeah, fantastic. Agree with you on that. But I don't like this
Now-
film very much, and I struggle with it. I must say, like you know, it's just one of those where I just think that it's just an unfortunate mix of things that just doesn't like, you know, I don't really believe in the romance centrally. I don't think the comedy is very funny. I don't think Mysterio is that good. You know, the action's fine, the score's fantastic. You know, and I used to really hate this film, and I think I've mellowed. I think I don't think it's very good, but like I can see why you would. It's just not what I personally want from a Spider-Man story. And the way that it all unfolds, I feel like you've really missed a chance on making, you know, a story about Mysterio and about, you know, what people believe and about showmanship and about, you know, the truth. That's kind of in there, but that would be so great, and they would rather do other things, and that's a bit of a shame.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a really weird movie when you look through the Spider-Man, you know, franchise. Like, I mean, you got Amazing Spider-Man 2, which was unique, you know, trying to tell different stories, you know, with Green Goblin and Rhino, like in a few minutes' time, but it doesn't handle this well. But this one, I was not even prepared to see like how, you know, the odd, you know, choosing for the storytelling, you know, where they were going to go for, because the story just centers around, you know, a trip to Europe and like trying to explore different places, and you know, and Peter to confess, you know, his feelings towards MJ for this movie. And the weird part about this is because we didn't have any time to develop about, you know, Peter's, you know, love, you know, the feeling towards MJ, and it just felt like a bit rushed. We just didn't have like this time to like understand that feeling of like, you know, how does he learn about love? And also being Spider-Man, like, you know, has a lot of like responsibility, you know, for, you know, your loved ones as well. Like you get to see that in the Raimi trilogy, and it's just like, was there any, you know, tension for that? Like, you know, what if MJ kind of, you know, if Homecoming was all about like, you know, MJ and Peter Parker, and then have that like conflict about like, you know, what if MJ has like a different view on Spider-Man, or, you know, all of that. Like there isn't really any tension or conflict to really go through this like for Spider-Man. I mean, until at the very end of the movie when Mysterio is just like, hey guys, he's Peter Parker. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, great to see J.K. Simmons back as J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah.
This one's kind of tough for me. I think this one kind of falls kind of similarly to The Amazing Spider-Man 2, where there are things that I there's things I absolutely love about this movie. There's also things that I don't think work as well as they probably should. Like, I actually love Mysterio here. Like, I think he is the highlight of the movie. I think, like, that, the scene when he's inside Peter, you know, like, Peter's seeing all the things, and he's, like, he's in the giant snow globe, and he's seeing the Iron Man corpse, and he's running, and his legs, his webs, like, I think everything with that. I love the final fight, like, between him and Mysterio, where it's like, you can't trick me anymore. Like, that, him having to use his spider sense. Like that all is so good.
And I think Jake Gyllenhaal's performance as well is really great.
He's very good.
Yeah, I agree, and I know a lot of people don't like that they connected him directly to Iron Man, but I kind of do enjoy. I do kind of enjoy Peter's arc here, and it kind of goes contrast to the Homecoming arc, I guess, where it's like, well, I'm the new Iron Man, and his arc in that movie is realizing, well, no, I'm not. I'm my own hero. And then here it's like, well, now he's dead, so now I have to be the new Iron Man. I have to step up. And everyone's asking himself that. Peter himself is like, well, that's who I am. And I know a lot of people dog the film for that, but I'm like, no, I think the point of the movie is him realizing he's not. Like, he's actively trying to learn what you're so mad at him for, you know, going on. Well, that being said, though, there's a lot of weirdness in this movie. Like, obviously, you know, all the clips people show on Twitter once a month. You got, like, the scene with the drones where he has the glasses on. Like, yeah, that's not great. I don't love the, like, him naked in the dorm scene that people post as well. Like, but also, I also think this movie goes from, like, oh, this is one of the worst comic book movies ever made kind of groupings, and I don't think it deserves that. Like, I think it's fine.
No,
there's great stuff here. I think there's things that work. I agree on the MJ thing, though. I think, like, I don't know. I think the MCU has a real lacking of love stories. I guess there's superhero things in general.
Oh,
I miss
100%.
love journeys, and Peter and MJ should be that. And I enjoy what they've done in the MCU overall, but I wanted the journey there. It's just like kind of skipped over all the fun bits of it all. Which is, again, I love, like, Zendaya. I think she's great. I love her as MJ overall. Like, I think and actually, I think what they do in the third movie is probably they're at their best, like them at their best. But yeah, I agree. I wish maybe this was a journey about them falling in love. Instead of just like, oh, I'm trying to get a bracelet or whatever. I'm trying to get a necklace for her or whatever. So this is, and I'll be curious to see where you put it. It's my number 7. It's not in my bad category, but it's in that middle. It's in that middle area for me.
Tom, I think I guessed where you put it.
Oh yeah. What do you think?
You put it at number 10, didn't you?
What? How did you know? You've got my list there, don't you? You know it.
I also got it at number 10 as well.
The curse. We return.
The curse.
We have exactly the same, apart from 8 and 9, which are just switched. No, I think that, like, the main thing is that, and this comes down to all stories, all pieces of art.
Yeah.
Then.
Hello?
Tom?
Hello?
wait, oh.
Well, we're moving on.
I don't know what he was going to say. Is he... Oh, okay. Is my curse gone?
I think so.
I'm back.
Oh, you're back! Oh my god!
I'm back.
I was like, should
that was great because I was great because I really need to pee, and I was like, oh my god, I can go, and I was like, no, I'm back. No, I just like stories about supposed to make you feel something, and this one just doesn't really do anything for me, and so therefore, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't really kind of, I don't think much of it. But maybe one day I'll watch it and I'll be like, oh my god, this has hit me at the right time of my life, and I've just,
I see it now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right, end of the Tom Holland trilogy. I actually thought this poster was kind of fun. I was looking through poster reviews. I was like, you know what, this is
a good poster.
It's a good one. It's a good one. It just kind of threw me off because, like, you can see a bit of the Photoshop. I don't know. It's just a bit odd.
Yeah.
Like, oh wow. Okay, there's a lot.
It's great concept, but
yeah, very high concept. Yeah,
it looks like PNG files, right? Where it's just like, whoop.
Yeah, it's cool.
Sure.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. I mean, this is a big one because this was the event movie, right? Everything we've talked about up until this point, outside of Into the Spider-Verse, has led to this movie, if you will. Them all kind of combining into one giant one. What's your guys' opinion on No Way Home?
Wow, No Way Home was, it was like so hyped. Like everyone was talking about it. Like they were bringing back Tobey Maguire. They're bringing back, Andrew Garfield. Like all the guys that you thought about in the Spider-Man movies, and it just felt like okay. This is really exciting. They're going to bring back fan base, maybe potentially fan bases from the movies or the fan favorites. And when it comes to that, to events like that, like you can't go wrong. It can be really exciting around that time to be like, wow, okay, they're going to do something really exciting for that. Like Infinity War. That was massive. That was so hyped, and then Endgame as well. And then when it comes to this, it just feels like it was exciting, but then when you watch the movie, it just feels like there's some really good elements into it, but it just kind of lent on the concept like later on in the movie, like how they're gonna put the villains back into their own world and in their time, and for the old guy, for Toby and for Andrew to come back, it almost lent on that hype. Like it could have like centered around more about we do get to see that development for Peter. Like I have to be my own hero for this. I have to be Spider-Man, and I want to undo all of my mistakes, and it does hit really hard at the end of the movie. He has a new life. He doesn't have to be to be with Tony Stark. To be leaning on that whole Stark Industries thing. Yes, he doesn't have that anymore. So I really like that for a change. The movie has to learn what it means to be. And there was one thing that I really like is that this Peter Parker, Tom Holland, he gets to learn, and I think that was the big thing. He has to have this responsibility, and I thought it was good, to watch it at the screen, and then everybody just cheering like when they see Andrew and Toby. So it was, I gotta say, it was exciting.
Yeah.
I mean that doesn't happen in British cinemas a lot. People cheering, but when that happened, I cheered along. I was like, oh my god, what's happening? And it's an event, it's an experience. I feel like this film is, and I just basically just echoing what John said, really. But I feel like there's some really great stuff. Second half especially is where we really kick into gear. I really enjoyed seeing Peter face death. It sounds really like morbid. I really liked him going through some trauma. That was really great. But I feel like the first act of this film, it does struggle. It just feels like a bit like more of the same. It feels like the comedy and the emotional stakes are a bit more at war of himself. But after that, I think it really sinks into a good flow, and it really gets those emotions well. The scene, like the whole apartment fight scene, is just amazingly done.
So good.
And there's some moments that I think really shine the most out of the trilogy. It feels like, oh wait, this is like this has got a style that I didn't feel before. This is really like kicked into gear, and I think that's just really great. Like the scene where J. Jonah Jameson is talking about the lives that Spider-Man destroys, and he's in the rain. I feel like that is marvelous, and it sets up some really interesting stuff for the new status quo. I think that they're probably almost likely going to bring back Ned and MJ, but I really hope that they would give us at least one film where that doesn't happen, because I love the idea that he is off on his own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I do think I'm a big component of I love a journey. I love a journey to a thing where it's like the fun isn't necessarily always the destination, but it's the journey getting there. And I think No Way Home is an amazing example of that, because it was about 2 years of are they in the movie? Are they not? Are they in the movie or not? And even leading up to the movie of they're probably in this movie, but there's still the doubt at the back of my mind of being but what if they're not? What if we were all duped? And getting into the theater and it's one of those, again, like you said, event movies that just like a one in a lifetime opportunity to be around. And I had a rather like small theater, like there wasn't many people in my cinema when I watched it opening day, which was quite disappointing because I was hoping for a little bit of a more of that trailer reaction, or you know, the reaction. But even then, like it was still, everyone was like, yes, they're here. That moment of them coming through. It's just one of those moments that people, I think, will remember forever. Also, like Daredevil fans were treated well in that movie as well. That was really cool to finally get him in there. But no, I think a movie like this is really easy to mess up. I think it's very easy to just be like, people want Spider-Man, throw them in there, have them have cameos or whatever. But yeah. I really appreciate that they feel like characters. They aren't just there because they aren't just there being like, hey, look at us, we're here. Or like, you know, the Flash of it all. Or I hated what they did with cameos and stuff in that movie. Where they're here, look at that. All right, now we're moving on. Like, they're actual physical characters. They have these mini arcs that they're going through in the back half of this movie, and really seeing what they've been going through. And I thought even the villains, like, I know not all of them got as much to do as they wanted to, but I think this is my favorite, like, Norman Osborn. Like, I think he's absolutely terrific. I like, forget what the quote is, but it's like strong enough to get what you want, but too weak to take it, or something like that. It's just
yeah.
Oh my gosh! And I almost think he has a better like dynamic with Tom Holland's Spider-Man than he did in Tobey's. Not to say they didn't have a great dynamic, because I think they did. Like, Norman's so great.
Yeah.
But I thought in this movie, like, I think previously Norman. I think in the 2002 movie, he was playing a really great Norman Osborn, and he did a great job at that. And here he's playing the Green Goblin. Like, he is like that is full on Green Goblin. That's one of the rare examples of a character coming back from a thing, and I think that improving upon what he did before. Like, it's so good, and the fact he did his own stunts, like you said, the like apartment scene where they're going through all the apartment's floors, and I think the death of Aunt May is brilliant. I somehow think, like, it was weird because I didn't really care about this universe's Aunt May prior to this movie, and somehow they made me bawl at her death. I was like, I don't even care. It's just like Peter's reaction to said events, and I think it's phenomenal. Like, I love just like, I also like the little like characterizations where it's just characters just talking to each other, chilling out. Like, yeah, I have back problems, and they're cracking each other's back, and the little like, you grow your own webs. That's crazy. Like, that was little stuff. You didn't have to add that stuff in there, but they did, because you could tell they really care about these characters and the fans of all these years. So I adore No Way Home. I really do.
Yeah, I wish that I could just only watch it at the cinema with a packed audience, because obviously, you know, that there is the thing that you see on Twitter quite a lot where, you know, they come through the portals and they stand there so everyone can cheer. But I can't really be mad at that, because that's kind of like, that is the intention. And
it's
I don't
really
really...
exciting.
Yeah, I haven't seen this film since the cinema, and I kind of don't ever want to, because I think that's just so beautiful, just that you have that atmosphere, and everyone was so nervous because because we knew that they were going to be back, but did we know that they were going to be back? We were like, of course they will. Right? You know, Andrew Garfield's playing his game of werewolf, like, while he's doing press for Tick Tick Boom, and you know, like, we're getting all these leaks, but like, is it true? People are analyzing Tobey Maguire's crotch, and it's like, you know, is any
Take
of
a
this
look at
real?
Tobey Maguire's dick. Yeah.
And I just like the whole thing is just like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? Like, I remember I even like was like, oh my god, I need to watch Daredevil, and so I rewatched Daredevil season 1, and just to like, you know, and then like, you know, Matt shows up, and I was like, yes, it was worth it. Like, and those kinds of things. Yeah. Like, you know. Yeah. Does it all come together as like its own piece of art that I will watch, you know, on my own in a room? No, but is it a great, you know, to kind of use what Scorsese says, you know, it is kind of like a theme park ride, and that I like. I think that the fact that it is a theme park ride is what it has going for it.
Yeah, and it's complimentary as well. You know, if you're saying that, like, it is like a roller coaster. You know, you're just enjoying the ride, and you know, when it comes to like the characters in this movie, I really love the small moments in this one. Like, especially when Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man was talking to Doc Ock, like catching up, like that was so sweet, and I was like, oh, you know, like they're just catching up, and about like,
or when Andrew's talking to Electro.
The MJ fall scene as well gets me every time. Like, I think that's such a good moment. Just these little things that just add up, and like you said, like, we don't want every superhero, because I think that's what Marvel kind of has fallen into. We're like, oh, we need to make everything an event. It has to be this event thing. I was like, well, no, not every movie is an event, but when you have the rare run, when you have Avengers, when you have No Way Home, when you have Deadpool and Wolverine, like I'm feeling that same kind of hype going into this movie. Like that feels like an event, and that's okay. It's just not every movie needs to be that. Like you pick, it has to be this rare occurrence when you can do that. So,
True.
yeah. Where's this one on your guys' ranking?
This comes in at number 6 for me, and I'm going to predict that it's exactly the same with John.
Number 6, guys. Wow.
Oh my goodness.
There it
So
is.
funny. It's my number 4.
Oh,
Okay.
When I came out of the theater, it was my favorite live action one, and since then I think Spider-Man 2 went back above it. It was like I was living on the hype. I was like, yeah, this is amazing. And I was like, you know what, Spider-Man 2 is still I think superior.
Ooh, that's always a great feeling, and it happens nearly every Spider-Man film. It happens certainly with Across the Spider-Verse, but I leave the cinema and I'm just like, yeah, that's the best one, isn't it? That's the best one. And then I rewatch it. You give it some time, and you're like, oh, maybe it's not, and I can see the holes, but for a brief moment of bliss, you're just like, yeah, that's awesome. That's what everything I want it to be and more. Okay.
Yeah, you're just looking back at the memories. You're just like, yeah, that was worth it. That was worth it.
Amazing. All right, and our final one here, and I am sorry I kept you guys so long today. I know
that is absolutely fine. I've had a great time.
It's been so much fun. It's been so much
fun. We have Across the Spider-Verse, which is the latest one. I'll be honest, I'm still living off the high of this movie. Like it's been over a year at this point, and I'm still like, oh my god.
that is so like understandable. Like, oh my god, when you leave. Leaving the cinema and watching this movie, and then you're just like, what did I just watch? That was amazing. And I didn't really expect this film to have like really high reviews, because how do you continue? Yeah, how do you top Into the Spider-Verse? And you just watched like, oh my god, like there's so many things compiled in this movie, and like the twists, the emotion, the with the characters, and you feel like they've handled the multiversal story in a very simple way. Like they didn't really complicate things, didn't really complicate, like, hey, there's a character we know, but they add in like really funny characters in the story, like to have like a small screen time, like, I don't know, a couple of seconds. And it just had like this really upbeat, like fun, crazy, chaotic, world of like what is Spider-Verse supposed to be like. And I gotta say, like Miles's character in this one is just incredible. Like yet again, when we go from Into and then Across the Spider-Verse, you have like no idea where we're going to, and then the opening of the film just really like tells you like what is going to happen to for the rest of the movie, like the heartbreak between like the secrets for Miles, like how he's going to find out that he isn't supposed to be Spider-Man. And it was like, whoa, okay. And it just has so many different concepts in this movie. And, when you leave, thinking about that twist that, Miles is in, in a different universe where, he becomes, Prowler, the I don't know, like the predecessor to Prowler. And that was like, oh my god, this is my Empire Strikes Back. Oh my god.
Yeah, when we covered it on our podcast, we the what the thumbnail said was best comic book movie ever ? And I feel like that's just kind of what you leave that film with. I mean, I haven't rewatched it since, and it has gone down a couple of pegs. I don't think it is as good as Into the Spider-Verse or Spider-Man 2, but there's every likelihood that I might rewatch this film and just be like, oh no, actually it is, because I think it is phenomenal. And there's that meme of like, you get to a certain point in a film and you lock in, you lean forward. That happened like a minute in. I felt like I locked in and I was just there. Like I actually saw it with John, and we were just astounded. I remember driving us back and just being like,
we ascended.
How do you go on from that? I felt like Frodo at the end of Return of the. How do I go on to like a regular life after watching such just mastery. I think everything, it does feel a bit like a half a movie, and for me there are things that don't work quite as well. Like, I don't think the soundtrack is quite as good, but these are real nitpicks, things that are just kind of making it a little bit less exciting than the first one. But honestly, this is just how you up the ante so well. I know that the third one has no release date, but I just take 20 years if you must.
Take as much time as you need.
Please take 70 years.
Don't rush it.
Like they really, like, if they can absolutely smash that ending, then there will be no doubt that this could be the greatest trilogy of all time.
I
of any
honestly
movie
agree.
ever.
It like if they stick to landing, I think it's easily the best trilogy of all time. It's crazy.
For sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, because like in my head, I sometimes struggle like, which one do you like more? And in my opinion, like between Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, like I don't think it really matters what order you place them. Like I think they are like for me on the exact same par, and it just kind of comes down to preference. And I do think I just had I had a lot more fun with Across the Spider-Verse, mainly because I didn't see the first one in theaters, so I didn't get that theater experience. I got to see this in theaters. I was blown away. I saw it on my birthday. So, like, that, like, memory was just, like, I don't know, intensified. Because that's just a fun day. And I got to go with some friends who were also very excited. I was with a friend who, like, didn't know it was a part one. And that was just the coolest theater reaction I've ever had. Of just being, like, him, like, being, like, wait, what? And him looking at me like, it's over? Like, what do you mean it's over? Like, it just started. What are you talking about? And, like, that is such a cool moment. And I know a lot of people don't like that. It kind of ends in the middle. And you know what? That's fair. Like, I definitely understand that. But also, I kind of love, like I said previously, I love the journey of something. Like, I like that we are going to now have these 1 to 2, 3 years to now talk about this movie. Like, Infinity War, I love Infinity War. And one of the reasons I think I love it even so much is I had that entire year to talk about that movie with my friends and be like, what's going to happen? What's our theories? How is it going to go down? And like those memories are ingrained into me forever. And I got the same thing with this one. And it just had such like a, I know this is a lot less than the movie quality itself and just my experience with it. But like, I also kind of think that's what film's about. Like it is about your experience that you had with the movie. And it was such a special like theater experience I had with it. And did you go into the movie itself? I also think it's like arguably one of the best comic book movies ever made. Like that and Into the Spider-Verse are just like my top 2, top 3, or whatever it may be. Like they're both just so good. Love Miles' arc. I actually think this is like Gwen Stacy's movie, and like her arc throughout the movie is like perfect. Like I absolutely love how they did that. And like that's kind of been my argument about like, well, the movie ends halfway. I'm like, sure. But I feel like Gwen's arc kind of ends in this movie. Like, it feels like she goes through an entire arc. So it doesn't just feel like, well, we're done, right? It feels like a arc was able to be had here. I love Peter here. I think he's great as always. And I think, like, a movie like this is hard. Like, it's hard to introduce that many characters, do it the way, obviously, like, you have the cameos in here, but they feel like they're ingrained so casually that doesn't feel like, the, like, Leo meme where it's just like, huh? Like, they're just there. And it makes sense. And I don't know. I adore this movie. I think it's my number one but again, like Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse, they're my top 1, top 2. Like they could switch on a day and I'd be like, all right. But yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I can't argue. I mean, I have it as number 3, but it's still like, like those first 3, Into the Spider-Verse, Spider-Man 2, Across the Spider-Verse, are all just different flavors of amazing. I think that there's nothing better than a part 1 that ends on a note where you want to just leap. And you're angry because it's a cliffhanger, but you're also like, that is perfect. And I'm going to be thinking about this forever.
That's so good,
Yeah, and that is one of those times, like, I think about Back to the Future Part 2 or Dead Man's Chest or Infinity War as these spectacular conclusions where you're just like, how do they pull that off? And I have to wait a year. Like, Back to the Future Part 2 has the literal teaser for Part 3. I can't imagine being there in the 80s and watching that teaser and being like, huh? Like, what? Like, can you imagine if Across the Spider-Verse ended with a Beyond the Spider-Verse teaser? I mean, in many ways it does, like, with all the Spider people going into the portal. The moment when, like, Gwen's like, I formed a band of my own, and it pans out and we see, like, all of the Spider people from this film and the other, like, that is so
and the music, the like drums,
the music with the drums, like Daniel Pemberton was on another level.
I think this is arguably some of the best like comic book movie music we've ever had. Like throughout the whole movie, like I love the like Miguel's arc where it's like, like it's like, oh my god, it's so good.
Man. And then you see that to be continued, tile at the end. You get to hear these like audible like gasps at the end in the cinema, and you just feel
Yeah.
like everyone just being with you, like, no, we need more.
So many
Yeah.
kids, man. So many kids who are walking out just like, what do you mean? Are you telling me that I can't watch the next one right now?
Yeah.
I demand it. I demand it.
Yeah.
now.
So good. Yeah, and I saw this twice in theaters, and like both times I left feeling in like a high. Like I was just like,
Yeah.
what did I just experience? I also just think it's like, as far as like animated movies, I think it's like the most impressive animated movie ever made. Just what
sure.
they're able to do. Like there's never been a movie like this. There's never been a movie outside of Into the Spider-Verse, which I feel like they just took the animation they did there. It's like, hey, can we make this even better? Like, how do you do that? You're like, that was the peak, and then you're like, yeah, let's upgrade that. Somehow they did it. Like the whole.
Yeah, and
like,
they've
the
even been
opening...
talking about the next one, talking about how they're even going even bigger. How is that possible?
Yeah.
Like, you know, and I do think that again, like the fact that this next film is delayed, I hope that they can give the animators enough time this time to really, you know, like relax, don't be crunched, and to, you know, to get it all right, and to have a picture locked before you, like, you know, because like different cinemas are being sent different ones. Either way, when Beyond the Spider-Verse releases, not only for the sake of you two who didn't see Into the Spider-Verse in cinema, but I think for the sake of everyone, they need to re-release Into and Across the Spider-Verse. You know, make it a triple bill. I will sit in the cinema for 12 hours. Like,
that would be incredible to watch. No.
I'd probably have a headache by the end of that. Like, it's just like, oh my gosh, so it's like
that's a good headache to have.
Yeah, I'm kind of sad because they're playing in my theaters next week, because like my theater's like bankrupt, so they're trying to do like a lot of these like old movies coming back, and it's in there this week, but I'm on vacation, so like I can't go. I'm like, oh man, I could have seen it. But yeah, no, it's amazing, and I've never needed a movie to be like, I've never needed a movie to be good this much in my life. Like the third one needs to be good. You need to take your time and make this the best trilogy ever made. I feel like, because you're right there, right on the precipice, just cross the finish line, and you're there. I feel like
that's always the most worrying thing when you have a trilogy and you're faced with the third one. I think Guardians 3 recently was one where it's like, please, please get it right.
You're just nervous.
And I think Guardians 3 is excellent, so like they did it, well done. But you know, like there's also those times when the third film doesn't quite stick the landing. You know, something like Rise of Skywalker, which I really struggle with as a film, and it's just like, oh, we were so close, guys. We were like, it's okay, I forgive you, but damn, you know. And I hope that I might not forgive them if Beyond the Spider-Verse. That may be the start of my villain origin story.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
such a phenomenal film, man.
So good. And I feel like that takes us to the end of today's episode. Thank you guys so much for being here. This was so much fun. Thank you.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks for having us again.
So fun. I loved it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Obviously, you guys run a podcast, but like, where can people find you?
Yeah, well, so you can find our podcast, the Outatime Film Podcast, on YouTube and on Spotify and Apple. And this week we're doing a video on Deadpool. We're getting ready for Deadpool and Wolverine. So, you know, you can tune in. That's also, you know, Marvel superhero content, which is great. And we've covered all of the Spider-Man films that we've talked about today, apart from Into the Spider-Verse, weirdly enough. That's the one that we haven't
why did we cover that?
I think we'll do it when Beyond the Spider-Verse comes out.
Yeah, it'll be fine. We can be
smart.
Yes.
Purposely leave it out for you can do the algorithm then. You're like, all right, we're all good.
There you go. Sure, for sure.
Amazing. Well, again, thank you so much. This was an absolute blast. In terms of me, next week, I'll be on vacation, but I have a pre-recorded episode coming out next Thursday. And without further ado, I will see you guys on the flip side. Bye-bye.